Tonight's Fireside CharLA is brought to you in partnership with United Latinx Fund and Latino Coalition of Los Angeles. This online event series aims to engage, educate, and advocate on important timely topics that impact LA's Latinx community, and for tonight, especially LA's nonprofit Latinx community during the COVID-19 pandemic and how we can support the local economy. My name is Richard Corral, and I am Interim Executive Director of the United Latinx Fund. I'd like to quickly thank sponsors for tonight's event, Southern California Gas Company and JP Morgan Chase, for their commitment to and investment in nonprofits like United Latinx Fund that work to transform, uplift, and improve our community's quality of life. Our program is designed to engage you, our audience. So if you have any questions, please enter your questions in the chat box. And please note that everyone's audio and video will be muted until the question and answer. Also, tonight's program is streaming on Facebook Live. So to access the video and host a watch party, please visit ULF's Facebook page, and a link is provided in the chat box. Thank you, Cindy, for your moderation of the chat box tonight and for your leadership as the board president of the Latino Coalition of Los Angeles. In fact, I'm actually going to be hosting a watch party here right now on my phone. I'm just putting in a header to learn about United Latinx Fund's 2020 grant making cycle, community grant making program. Tune in and you can add your friends and everybody can benefit from tonight's information. Sending it now. Tune in. All right. Start the watch party. Excellent. Tonight's conversation centers on United Latinx Fund's Community Grants Program. We are currently accepting grant applications through Friday, August 28th at 5 p.m. ULF's Community Grants Program provides unrestricted funding for a one-year small grant between $5,000 and $15,000 to grassroots 501c3 nonprofit organizations committed to creating a Los Angeles where Latinx thrive. ULF's funded programs must align with at least one of our funding priorities, which are jobs and housing. These priority areas are broadly interpreted to accommodate a diverse array of applicants, programs, and strategies working to improve job readiness, increase the number of living wage jobs, and make housing more available to Latinx throughout Los Angeles County. Also, special consideration will be given this year to applicants whose proposals not only align with ULF's funding priorities, but also work to address the impacts of COVID-19 within Latinx communities. Successful applicants engage Latinx in their organization's governance and programming, have an established record of building partnerships, and leveraging resources. Current and former grantees include job training programs such as East Yard, Communities for Environmental Justice, Serving Southeast Los Angeles, and empowering youth to learn advocacy and engagement skills to assist local residents to remain in their homes and forego homelessness. Also excited to report that one of our grantees, Hope for Housing, a program that is run through Shower of Hope, is about to launch a student housing project designed specifically for students that are experiencing homelessness at East LA College. We also have granted and invested in workforce pipeline programs through organizations like Self-Help Graphics, Las Fotos Project, and the Big Cell Exchange, and many other incredible local nonprofit organizations. So whether your organization seeks funding or not, we do encourage you to partner with ULF. For example, through our weekly CharLA series, as well as through our activities and partnerships and activism through the Latino Coalition of Los Angeles. Our core mission is to support organizations and its leaders through highlighting your work, establishing partnerships that result in great reach and impact for us all. So I've given you just a very brief overview of the grant application process. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share my screen, and I'm going to walk you through the application itself. And it's very important at this juncture of the program to write down your questions in the chat box, because what I'll do is momentarily and periodically I will defer to Cindy, and Cindy will facilitate some Q&A, and then I'll go ahead and proceed. Cindy, at this point in time, before I actually share the grant application, in your opinion, are there any questions that you think I should answer that are very high level, or should I just go ahead and proceed with the application review?
Yeah, Richard, I think that it would be best for you to proceed with the application, and then we should, as the questions are coming in, I'll make sure to put together some of the questions afterwards if folks start having some questions throughout your presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, Cindy. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to begin by providing the URL of our organization. And I put the URL of the fund in the chat box. So for those who want to follow along with me, you could also open up that URL and follow along. So I now am on the home page of the United Latinx Fund. And to access the grant, you just visit the grant making page, and you'll see some basic information about the Community Grants Program. Much of this information I have already provided to you in my introductory statements and comments. And then what you do is you just click on this link here to download the application, and it will pop up into a separate screen. Before I review the application, I just wanted to let you know that the good news is that many of the staff and the board who are affiliated with United Latinx Fund have been members of nonprofit organizations themselves or have run nonprofit organizations. And so one of the things we did when we first began our work with the fund is we really wanted to ensure that the application was easy and simple and straightforward. And so although that sounds easy, it isn't necessarily as easy as it looks or as it sounds. And so we really made a concerted effort to streamline the process. And I'm happy to report that we oftentimes get feedback that it is one of the easiest grant applications when compared to other foundations. And that really is intentional. So on the first page, it really is just a summary of our vision and mission statements, the objectives of the Community Grants Program, the eligibility criteria around jobs and housing, which I shared earlier on today's program. And then there's a very simple sort of check boxes, if you will, of other eligibility criteria around serving the Latinx community, located in and serving LA County residents. We are a LA County focused philanthropy. Of course, being a 501c3 nonprofit or having a fiscal sponsor. For example, Community Partners is a well-known 501c3 fiscal sponsor, which is fine. We've funded many nonprofits through them before. Of course, we do try to prioritize nonprofits that are working, that are more grassroots. So that means on average, we look for organizations that are with an annual operating budget of $500,000 or less. We also will consider new programs being developed by nonprofits with budgets over $500,000 as well. Of course, we want to make sure that our organizations are led by a majority of Latinx leadership on the board of directors whenever possible. And we also have eligibility criteria for previous grantees. We have a policy where we do fund the same organizations for no more than 2 consecutive grant cycles. So if you were an organization that was funded last year for the first time, you're still eligible. And of course, that is dependent upon past performance and compliance of previous grant-making terms. We do have some limitations. These are very standard. Anybody or most organizations that do grant making have these very same funding limitations, so none of them should be particularly new to most folks. That includes not being able to fund scholarships or fellowships or capital campaigns, meeting individual personal needs, deficit funding, religious purposes, political campaigns or C4s, so on and so forth. It's pretty straightforward. We do have an indirect cost of nothing above over 15% of the total request. Oftentimes there's a lot of indirect costs, particularly with universities have a lot of indirect costs and overhead, and oftentimes it'll exceed over 15%. Most nonprofits, smaller nonprofits, don't have indirect costs that are above 15% of the total request. We do have a grant submission checklist and guidelines. There's really only 4 pieces to this grant. The application form, which I'll go through in a second, the narrative, the budget, and then a list of standard attachments that most organizations are fairly familiar with. And we'll get to that in a second. I'm just gonna wrap up one more section, and then I'll defer to Cindy for any questions that have emerged from this specific piece of the application. Some very standard basic requirements in terms of font size. Be sure to have it signed by the executive director or board president. A single PDF. It makes it so much easier if you can combine everything into a single PDF. And then the email to submit the application. And we are doing a fast turnaround on this grant cycle. We would like to announce our grant recipients no later than Wednesday, September the 30th. The reason why we're doing that is in response to some feedback that we received from many of our organizations and grantees that we serve, that due to coronavirus, towards the end of September is when funding insecurity would kick in, and that many of the grants that had been received previously would be wrapping up or have been exhausted and expended. So that's why we strategically moved up our grant making by 3 months. For those of you who are familiar with our organization, we try to announce our grants during during the holiday season, during the season of giving, and it makes for a festive event during our holiday mixer. So we moved that up by 3 months. Before I get into the application form, I'm going to defer to Cindy. Cindy, if you could share at this time any questions that you feel are pertinent and relevant for me to answer at this time before I get into the application itself.
Yes. So before folks apply, if their organization is not necessarily led by Latinx community leaders, but it serves Latinx communities, can they still apply?
Yes, they can apply. And again, I think the way that is presented, let me just pull it up here. Oh, yeah. What it says here is that priority is given to organizations that have majority Latinx leadership and board of directors, but it definitely doesn't prohibit organizations from applying that are not. Any other questions that are relevant to the content that's been shared thus far?
Yes. So Will Flores is asking that their organization's budget is less than $50K. And as a result of that, they are not required to file a complete 990 form. They have to instead file an e-postcard on their budget because it's kept a little ledger in the form of the Excel. Is that okay?
So, just to clarify, the organization has no federal filings. That's a unique question. All of our organizations have always provided a 990 form as part of their 501c3 requirements. I'm happy to connect with our finance department to further vet the requirements of organizations, nonprofits that are under $50,000, and if 990s, or if there's a substitute for 990, and that's something that's accepted by the IRS, then there shouldn't be any problem with that.
Awesome. And then the last question from Jason is, how many organizations do you anticipate to award?
It's a great question. It varies. It really varies on a variety of different variables in terms of the strength of the applications that we receive. It also varies on whether applications are, for lack of a better word, lopsided, in the sense that there's a lot of, for example, jobs, but very little housing, right? So sometimes we we want to make sure that we try to equally invest, right, in both of those silos of jobs and housing. So it's difficult to say. On average, I mean, I can make an estimate. I would estimate that it would be anywhere between 5 and 10 for this particular year. But again, there's a lot of variables at play.
Thank you, Richard.
Any other questions before I go into the application that are high level? Okay. Thank you, Cindy. That was great. Super helpful. Let's get into more of the details. The application form, again, this should be, there's really no surprises here. It's the standard information in terms of the organization, the executive director, the tax ID, who the project lead is for the particular project that's being funded, the title, whether it's jobs or housing, and then the total number of individuals that would be served by the grant, children, youth, and adults, and then the average income of those served, and then the primary cities or neighborhoods served by this grant, obviously within Los Angeles County. You have your total organizational budget, your project budget, and then of course, the amount requested from ULF, and then a signature by the board, the executive director, or the board president. And that's the first requirement, 1 page, that's it. Moving on to the narrative. The narrative has 4 sections, and the 5th are attachments, which are attachments that most organizations have readily available to them. The first is a background information on history, mission, and goals, activities of, the main activities and programs, and the needs to be addressed, the target cities, neighborhoods, and populations served, which is also featured on the first page, and the demographic data, which is also somewhat related to a question on the first page as well. The good news is that we're only asking for no more than 4 pages. So in theory, it's really no more than a page for each of the sections. You will take less than 4 pages if you'd like. That's totally fine as well. But we did 4 pages because there's 4 sections, right? The funding request, again, these could be very simple responses in terms of the project, the need, again, more about the targeted cities or the demographics, any partnerships. We always, as funders, as you know, definitely encourage partnerships in order to leverage resources, the objectives of the project, and then, of course, any expected long-term outcomes, the benefits and the impacts. And then we have a sustainability question in terms of the funders that already exist around related to the program, and then any activities you have planned to sustain the project. And then lastly, a quick overview of your staff and project timeline. Who are the staff, names and titles and roles, and then your timeline for 6 months with start and completion dates for each activity. And then we have attachments, which are all very standard. Your board, your 501c3 tax exempt letter, current year's operating budget, 990, including the Schedule A, and then of course the project budget, which we provide a very simple template here for your review. We have some sample entries. Obviously, you can remove those entries, but we break it down into personnel and then direct operating expenses for materials and any sort of overhead, space, etc., printing, and then the total expenses are at the bottom. And so those are that's essentially the application in a nutshell. I'll go ahead and open it up to or defer to Cindy to help facilitate the questions.
Yeah, so I have a question from Anne. She's asking, how many applications do you typically receive or expect to receive?
That's a good question. We usually get anywhere between, I think we average about 20 to 30 applications.
And then Jason is asking, if the applicant is a faith-based organization tax exempt, do they still need a 501c3?
Yes. Yes, we can only fund, per the IRS, we can only fund 501c3, other 501c3 organizations.
Okay. And then this is a personal question that I think will help folks. Is there any additional documentation that they can provide that can help, headline their application?
Just the information that's requested here in the proposal. Nothing more, nothing less.
Awesome. I think those are the only questions I see in the chat box for now.
Okay, great. Well, in all honesty, that really concludes my overview and presentation. We really did have made concerted efforts to try to make this simple, direct, and concise and easy. Like I had said earlier, most of us have been part of nonprofits, but on the other side of the fence, so to speak. So we really did make that effort to try to streamline the process and make it simple and very easy. I just want to give you a little background in terms of how we actually fundraise. Each year, ULF facilitates workplace giving campaigns, primarily through public sector entities, including LAUSD, City of Los Angeles, and the County of Los Angeles. And through these workplace giving campaigns, employees designate a percentage of their paycheck or a one-time donation and designate one of several charity options, including ULF. It's through this funding that we get to reinvest into our community. We've had donors give now for 30 years that we've been in existence, and it continues to grow under the expert leadership of Victor Cruz, who is our workplace giving campaign manager. As an aside, ULF is the sole philanthropic organization that has been around for this long and has continuously supported Latinx serving nonprofits for 30 years here in the greater Los Angeles area. So if your company or employer is interested in either facilitating or implementing a workplace giving campaign, please contact Victor Cruz, who will put his contact information in the chat box at this time. Thank you, Victor. Also, I do want to do two quick announcements before we open it up for the mixer is I'd like to remind everybody that we are now elevating the campaign for nonprofit resilience from signature gathering to actual securing of funds. This is something that is one of the important 4 tenets or pillars of the campaign for nonprofit resilience. Cindy, if you could put a link in the chat box to the campaign. So if those who are not familiar with the campaign, we have over 1,200 signatures in support of sustaining our most resilient nonprofits that serve the most vulnerable communities throughout LA County. And the second phase of the campaign is to begin to make investments. So of course, the 2020 community grant cycle is part of that commitment, but we also have additional commitments and other sources of funding that we're bringing to the table as well, so that we can bring the campaign for nonprofit resilience into its fruition. Lastly, I'd like to close out by sharing the topic for next week's CharLA, which will be at the same time, 5:30 next Thursday. And the topic is Census 2020 Strategies Amid the COVID-19 Pandemic. And our guest speakers are representatives from the California Community Foundation, Adrian Vasquez and Stefania Ramirez, as well as some surprise media guests who will be joining us to speak on how several local nonprofits who are leading food distribution programs are also partnering up to engage the targeted population, a population that oftentimes is undercounted, and to make sure that that population is engaged and counted in the 2020 census. So we're very excited to feature them. Also because, as it so happens, those who are often not counted or undercounted in the census also happen to be Latinx. So we feel an obligation to address that topic. So let's, yes.
If you can please restate the deadline. Did you say September 30th?
No problem. So if we, on the website, the deadline for submission of the application is Friday, August 28th at 5 p.m. And that's on the homepage of the website. And then it's also in the application as well. In terms of when we're going to be announcing the grants, we're going to be making our announcement Wednesday, or no later than Wednesday, September 30th. But we can also have more Q&A during the mixer. So if Rashad and Cindy want to, I can help as well to get folks into to join us, and let's promote them to panelists and turn on their audio and their video, and we can continue the conversation.
Richard or Rashad, can you please make Leah an interpreter, please?
Sure. Rashad, if you could do that, that would be great. I can promote folks myself.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everybody. And you can feel free to turn on your video if you'd like to ask a question. And Cindy, I'll defer to you. If anybody has any questions.
Yes, I have a question from Milton, and it's a really good question, Milton. He is asking, what are the reporting requirements for grantees that are funded?
Oh, that's a great question. So we used to do a site visit, and the site visit the purpose was more to get a sense of what the needs were of the organization, how we may be helpful. But even more importantly, we used to do site visits because we bring our video production team We have a great, for those folks who follow us online, you'll note that we have interactive content and video productions and highlights of the CharLA, for example. So we would bring our team and we would produce a social media clip for all of our grantees. Unfortunately, that is not available right now. We may have to defer that a little bit. So besides that, we did have a very short one-page, I wouldn't even call it a report, I would call it more of an update that we also asked our grantees to complete. And then there was just one other requirement, which is that we wanted folks or our grantees to, we wanted our grantees to promote their grant online. So as much as possible and whenever possible, once we made the announcement to, share on social media that you were a grantee and that you had received a grant. So that's really it. Those are the requirements, so to speak. And that's a list of those requirements are featured on your grant.
Hi, Richard. I actually had a follow-up question. I heard you earlier. I was on the Facebook, but I didn't hear it all the way. But you said the funds were going to be dispersed earlier this year, or grantees would be known.
They'll be notified in September, at the end of September, and by that time, soon after, we'll be cutting checks.
So for the 6-month window for the funding, if you're applying, should your 6-month period be starting September, or should it be on your regular calendar year, like if it's a program that's already in existence?
Yeah, I would just do the regular calendar year, because I mean, if you think about it, you'll be getting the check in October, you cash it, and more than, and again, usually we do the calendar year. Why? Because as you know, you've attended our mixer, right? So it makes sense in December, but we're making a special adjustment this year in light of COVID and in light of the needs of our grantees. So yeah, I would just do the calendar year. That should be fine. Do we have any other questions?
No, but Rashad, can you make Leia an interpreter, please?
Oh, we still have Alejandra interpreting.
Yes, and Leia needs to be, okay, she just got it right now. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Rashad. I know it's a little tricky, so thank you for that. I appreciate you. All right. Any other questions? Or is it time for an adult beverage? And is it a time for an adult beverage? I'm just kidding. Anybody? Or should we have Raul play some music for us? Or I think it would have to be Rashad.
Yeah, it'll be Rashad, but I think you were pretty clear, and thank you, because I know for a lot of the nonprofits that have been meeting frequently on Fridays, there was some anxiety with the deadline and just, usually grant processes are very difficult and lengthy. And so I think it's a breath of fresh air, especially to some grassroots nonprofits that they're going through this for the first time, right? Because they didn't think that in the past they had an actual chance. And so just great job on breaking it down.
And to that end, Raul, we have our calls every Friday, or every other Friday, I should say, with our nonprofit partners. I attend those calls. There's no reason why, if folks have questions, that they shouldn't be able to ask those questions even during those calls as well. I mean, I'll also put my email. So there's many opportunities. Don't feel like, we're out of reach. People know that I am online pretty much all the time. So I'll answer your questions, or you can drop in on our Friday morning chats every other Friday, which Raul can put some information in the chat box about that as well.
Yeah. And so Samantha Ortega is on. She can share her email
yeah.
address. I think she's still
Yeah.
on.
She's on.
Okay. So Sam, if you can share your email address, and she can also help out. And then I'm gonna make a plug. I know that the Latino Coalition of LA has a fundraiser tonight at 7 p.m. So Cindy, why don't you tell us what's coming up at 7 p.m. and how people can join?
So you can join by purchasing a $10 ticket. I will go ahead and pull up on the chat box the Eventbrite link. We're having 3 amazing ladies joining us for the fundraiser as performers. Everything from DJs to singers to dancers. So it's definitely an opportunity for us to highlight our women in the industry and really just thanking them for helping us raise money for Miriam Torres. She is a student that will be attending UCLA in the fall. Miriam experienced a lot of troubles growing up through high school, and now with the burden of COVID, we were able to partner up with her and really put this event together, and we're excited. So please go ahead and check out the chat box. I'll go ahead and put the link to the Eventbrite. Tickets are $10. And again, it's going to be an amazing performance, so hope that you all can join. Thank you, Raul, for highlighting that.
Thank you, and Richard also for letting us make that plug.
Yeah. Does anybody else have a plug? Anybody else want to promote something? Any new, exciting, innovative developments, hot topics, chisme? We're open to it. We're here for it. Anybody? Denise, I know you got something to talk about and share what you got something cooking up for an upcoming CharLA. Why don't you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're looking to, hi everyone, looking to take the next step with the Children's Detention Centers, coordinating with collaboration with Latinx as well as LCLA to bring in some explanation as to what's really going on at this point, to educate people and provide us a little more info where we're at, what can be done, and how to take action in creating more activity and situation that the children who are detained and the delays in the detention, and see what we can do as a community to collaborate and create some action in that area. So looking forward to some things coming up, and we'll be posting as we go along, and we confirm some speakers, and hoping to have Kamala Harris or lead counsel on the case to come up and share a little bit of where we're at with that situation, what we can do to activate. So looking forward to that.
Excellent.
Richard, we got to plug the multicultural, multi-generational collaborative that some of the organizations that are here are part of is going to be conducting a press conference tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. In front of Jackie Lacey's downtown office. And we're continuing to ask for the resignation of Alex Villanueva, as well as amplifying the number of lawsuits that our Justice X colleagues have against the Sheriff's Department, as well as bringing forth some solutions when we're talking about reimagining public safety. So we're going to have Cliff Smith talk about that with his coalition that he's brought to the table. And so we also have some of the Churches of Christ that are going to talk about the importance of not only healing and prayer, but also the importance of addressing the public health issues that we have when we're talking about homelessness and everything that it takes in order to get somebody housed. You still have to be in the right capacity to be able to accept, help. And so lastly, we'll land on the fact that we're not accepting the doubling down of the CSP program for LAPD as an answer to reimagining public safety. That's not what we protested and marched for during the pandemic. And so we are going to ask city leaders to reimagine GRID, the Gang Reduction Youth Development Department, into more of a holistic youth development department that is a lot less dependent or maybe even free of any kind of collaboration with law enforcement.
And then the press conference tomorrow, do you want to talk about that?
That's what I was talking about. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. That's everything that we're going to be addressing tomorrow. So we'll have quite a few speakers from different orgs that will be jumping on. So if anyone's interested in joining us, maybe we can share the Google Drive link that has the media advisory and the press release.
And then I also noticed Betty asked a question about the budgets of the organization above or below $500,000. And Betty was asking, can organizations have a budget higher than 500K still qualify? Would that be too high? The answer is the only way that a organization with a budget higher than 500 can apply is if the program is new, if it's a fundamentally new program. I'll give you an example. We funded the Bixel Exchange last year, but the reason why is because they were, I believe, launching a new program or a new element to the program. And so we found that it was innovative in terms of job creation and targeting the Latinx community. So we decided to fund it. So that, and I guess another way you can say it is we considered it as sort of like seed funding, right? For like a startup. You can think of it that way. So just to clarify, I hope that was helpful, Betty.
Yeah, thank you. I think that would have been us maybe 8 years ago. We're no longer a new program, but that would have been, yeah. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? Or do we need to watch the
I have a question.
Yes, yes.
Hi, glad to be here with you all. In terms of the question that she just asked Betty, if it's a new organization just starting up, like what is like how likely are they able to get funded opposed to those who have already been in it?
So, just to clarify, we don't take into consideration the length of time that the organization has been in existence per se. More specifically, what we're talking about is the program, right? So if the organization is under $500,000, there's no issue at all there in terms of the program and the budget per se. It's only when the organization has a budget over $500,000 that the clause or the requirement kicks in that the program that is being funded has to be new. So we consider that to be like a startup or seed funding for a new program, but that only applies when the organization is has an annual budget above $500,000.
So hypothetically, say if I was starting up new and it was a new program for the Latinx community, and if it was above the 500,000, would I know you said it would be considered, but would it be like, it wouldn't be like the last on the totem pole. Would there be would there be a priority with it depending on what the organization is for? Would it be a priority on that? And the second thing I wanted to, let me figure out the second thing I wanted to tell you. So answer that question first.
Yeah, we don't
prioritize.
So we invest in and specialize in grassroots nonprofits. So what that means is that oftentimes grassroots nonprofits are new, and so we've funded new organizations, new programs in the past. What I will say is that we are a little bit cautious when an organization is asking us to fund 100% of their new program. That is a bit of a challenge. Usually we like to invest in a program that has other sources of funding. The reason why is because if we're the only funder, then the likelihood that the program will be sustainable is decreased. So it doesn't really matter if the organization is new, as long as you have your documents in order, of course. But the real, I would say, the most important element is that the program has other sources of funding. And I would say, at least 60% of funding. And then if we come in and fund, 15, 20, 30%, of the program, then that would work.
That's totally understandable. And it would also be the same application as the one that you showed earlier. Would there be an additional clause or something for that?
We only have one application.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, you have all of the information in the chat box. You know how to get a hold of us. We're accessible. I showed you where to download the application. We have well over a month to, I'm sorry. We have approximately, what is it going to be, 2 weeks? Hold on, 2 weeks as of Friday? Let me double check. No, my bad. A week. A week from Friday, my bad. A week from Friday is when the applications are due. So this workshop is timely for those folks who want to submit applications. Any other questions? Yes, please purchase tickets for the fundraiser being hosted by the Latino Coalition for helping scholarships. Actually, I'm going to purchase a ticket right now, as a matter of fact. Let me see. Go ahead and click on that link. All right. I'll share my screen so people know that I'm actually doing it. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, wow. Great page. Very cool. All right, here it is. So, oops. Try again. Scholarship. Huh. It's not popping up for some reason. Oh, well, I tried.
Preview.
Oh, there it is. It's working now. So here's the scholarship page. Digital fundraising event. So it'll be at 7 p.m. And there's going to be some special guests. I'm really excited for DJ Ortiz. Familiar with their work, so I'm really excited for that.
You know her?
Me? Am I? Yes.
Do you know her?
Yeah, I don't.
Wow.
I don't know her personally, no, but I'm familiar with her work. So.
Oh, that's funny. I met her at the gym. She's from the Valley.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know she was from the Valley. I didn't know that. Wait a second. Where's the I get
Small
to
world.
Where's the I get to pay link?
Oh, I think it's not letting you because it's close to the deadline.
Oh, well then I guess. Oh, I'm sure.
I will share the GoFundMe link on the chat box.
Okay, and then the Zoom link is in the ticket link in the bio. Is there a Zoom link here, or do I have to?
I just sent it to you. I added you to the calendar invite. So
Okay.
if you make a purchase right now or you make a donation through the GoFundMe page, I will send you the Zoom link.
Okay. So I just checked my inbox. All right. Very good. I got it. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Well, let's hop off, everybody. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for all the great questions. And we look forward to receiving your applications in a week from tomorrow. Please support the LCLA fundraiser. And also, many thanks to everybody who's part of the multi-generational, multicultural collaborative, and all of your work and support in helping us to bring justice for all of our communities. Thank you.